Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker. What if the name of the Messiah was revealed to the world through one of the most venerable rabbis in all of Israel's history? Imagine the ripple that would run through the Jewish world, and if in fact that name was Jesus, imagine the impact on the ability to witness and hasten the return of the Messiah. Is such a thing even possible? Not only is it possible, but here to talk about this blockbuster revelation is Carl Gallups, author of Amazon's newest #1 release, The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and the Identity of Messiah. He's also the best-selling author of Gods of Ground Zero and author of Gods and Thrones, Nahash, Forgotten Prophecy, and the Return of Elohim, When the Lion Roars, Understand the Implications of Ancient Prophecies for Our Time. He's the senior pastor of Hickory Hammock Baptist Church in Milton, Florida, an Amazon Top 60 best-selling author and conservative talk radio host heard nationally and internationally since 2002. He's a prolific TV, radio, and print media commentator and a member of the Board of Regents at the University of Mobile, Alabama. He's seen here as a part of our program as a featured guest for the Carl Gallups Hour on the second Monday of every month. You can find him at carlgallups.com. Carl Gallups, welcome to your hour here on Revealing the Truth.
Rabbi Eric, thank you. You're so gracious. You're a dear friend and brother in the Lord. And I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today because you're connected to it. You actually were a part of this project and a big part of it. So anyway, this is what is a double honor for me.
Well, it was an honor for me that on Friday at 4 o'clock, I joined you on your radio program. And it
was a lot of fun.
We just we fired it off, didn't we?
Yeah. We did.
I don't know that
I love doing talk radio, but gosh, the clock is just unrelenting. It's unforgiving, and everything's so quick. And you've got all the sponsors and advertisers and everything, but I think in the little 22, 23 minutes that we actually got to talk, I think we got a lot packed in there.
Well, I took one breath in the first 11 minutes.
Yes. I know, it was great. You were perfect, man. It was awesome. People are loving it.
Well, I'm glad, and I'm glad we're getting the message out. So this new book, and I want to jump right to this because it is so important. It's so incredible. This is, yes, I was a part of it, and yes, I wrote a very small contribution telling the story of my Jewish life and the hidden chapter, the chapter that's omitted from the Haftorah readings in every synagogue around the world, Isaiah 53, and it's significant. But this is a story that you began to tell a number of years ago. And it was a time that David Kaduri was alive, the son of Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri, who was the chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel and one of the most venerable rabbis, lived to be 108 years old, and if he spoke, he was the E.F. Hutton of Rabbinic Judaism.
Yeah.
When he spoke, people listened.
Yeah, he really did. All factions, all denominations of Judaism respected and revered him. Yeah.
And so you decided then to go deeper and go broader, wider, deeper. And although in your first book you alluded to Rabbi Zev, now there was a personal connection and a familial connection that made this story not only a story of renown, but a personal story, because one of the players in the story happens to be a ministry partner of yours and a ministry partner of mine.
Yes.
And that brought new life, breathed a whole new life into this story and sent you on a trail of investigative reporting, which you love as a former detective, but also a presentation of a generation changing and very possibly one of the works that we will look back in time upon that says this was part of the catalyst that accelerated the timeline of Jews coming to faith and the building of what you and I have talked about, the Third Temple and the rise of the Antichrist and the campaign of Armageddon. There have to be things that, I mean, a fire doesn't stay burning unless you continue to feed the fire. And I think this is pure gasoline on the fire that's been started in the last 25 years when Messianic Judaism and the movement to bring Jews to faith is really, now we're at 25 years later, maybe 1 million Jews around the world believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Maybe they haven't made a public profession, maybe they haven't left their synagogue, but of the 14.7 million Jews, I believe that close to 1 million really truly believe that Jesus is the Messiah. But now we're getting to the rabbinic side of it, and we're getting to the Israeli side of it, and we're getting into the power and the authority and the thought leaders, the ones that shape the very thoughts. And this book is a tool which is rich with ammunition that says that here are the facts. Now you have your Tanakh in one hand, you have this book in the other hand, you put them together, and this book you have is now completed in this book I'm holding in my hand.
Yes, yes. That's the book that I always wanted to write about this topic. Well, you know, and let me explain what I mean by that. Yes, in 2013, my first book came out called The Rabbi Who Found Messiah, The Story of Yitzhak Kaduri. It was translated into 5 different languages. A documentary movie was made. That was put into 3 different languages. That went through the world. God used it. He poured gasoline on the fire. The thing continues to burn. In the meantime, Jerusalem has been returned to Israel. The Third Temple fever has gone crazy. Other prophecies have burst forth. I met Zev personally. We've become ministry partners. In the midst of all that, I met you. We fell in love with each other in the Lord Jesus. We are now a part of ministry together. You and Zev are a part of ministry together. I have gleaned so much from you, your Hebrew mind, your Hebrew background, your own testimony, from Zev, his Hebrew mind, his Hebrew background, the fact that you guys both converse, speak in Hebrew fluently, and understand words and phrases and thought processes behind those words. The story just burst to life, and on top of that, new evidence has come forward, new witnesses have come forward, the prophetic connections have burst into the headlines. So that's why I said this is the one I've always wanted to write, because if I had known all of the stuff that I now know, if I had all the deep connections that I now have, the first book could have been so much better. But God used that book and he blessed it. But this one is, it makes the first one obsolete. And I authored the first one. So, you know, I'm kind of, talking down my own first book. God used it. It's good. People that read it really liked it. But this one makes it obsolete because this one retells the nut of the story. But it's not, I didn't just copy and paste it. I mean, I just retell it based upon all the new stuff I've learned. But more than retelling the story, you've got all this other stuff wrapped around it. And I tried to write it in almost like a novel format or an autobiographical format. Zev speaks from the first person, chapter after chapter after chapter, his writing. You speak from the first person, several chapters of your writing. I speak from the first person through the journey that I've been through with this unbelievable story, the persecution, the heartache, the attacks, the discoveries that we've made, the people that have come forth to me, Jews in Israel who've admitted things to me that I've put in this book. All of that is in here, plus deep word studies, deep understanding of the Tanakh and scriptures that point to Yeshua HaMashiach. From people like you, Zev, and other Hebrew experts. All of that's in this book. So this book is like, it's the magnum opus of the story as far as I'm concerned, because this is the story that won't die. So if the Lord lingers and you and I are still around, we may write a third book. Zev's already joking about that. He said, Carl, everything's happening in real time so quickly. that we may have to write a third book. And I said, brother, please don't even say that. Because as you know, brother, writing books, investigative books, is difficult work. And then the editing, and then all of the interviews and flying around the country and radio and TV. Of course, we have Skype now. That's a great thing. But it's time consuming. It consumes your life. And so, so anyway, I'm not whining or anything. I mean, God has put that upon me to do, and we've done it. Now, it's amazing, Brother Eric. You saw the promo video that I sent you. I don't know that I've ever seen that little clip that's at the end. When I got to the end of that promo video, it's a 1-minute video. I got to the end, and I saw that rabbi pronouncing a prophetic blessing over Yitzhak Kaduri sometime before he died, obviously. Kaduri's very elderly, but he's receiving this blessing. He's surrounded by these rabbinical who's who, the elite of the elite. And that rabbi pronounced over him, since you know who, and I'm paraphrasing, but since the Messiah has been revealed to you, since you know who he is, may you be blessed, and may this revelation go not only into Israel, but into the entirety of the world. He said the globe, because see, Kaduri means the circle, the globe. And he said, like your last name, may it go to the globe. And I got chill bumps because I was thinking, Eric, you and me and Zev are being used of the throne of heaven to take his message that the Jewish deep state now has tried to bury once they found out what his message really was. Now God's using the three of us to take it to the globe. I saw that and I got chill bumps and I said, oh my gosh.
I want to read you the blessing because it is so profound.
Okay.
Here is Rabbi Kaduri, who's 100 and something years old at the time of this blessing. He's receiving a blessing from an 80-year-old plus rabbi. And he says, may you have great and speedy success, together with the imminent arrival of Moshiach, Messiah, that you can influence the entire globe, which is appropriate for your name, Kaduri Globe. Then you will be able to enlighten not only Israel, but the entire world. That is the blessing that this rabbi spoke over Rabbi Kaduri before Rabbi Kaduri released to the world
the name.
The name.
The name. He put it in an encrypted secret note. Most of your audience probably knows the nut of the story, but for those that don't, you and I can tell it here in a moment. But it's just an amazing thing. And oh my gosh, the fake news, the deep state of Israel has attacked it. Yad Lachim, this anti-missionary group, continues to attack it. They already know about this book. They're terrified of it. And I'm not saying that in an ugly way. I'm not against anybody. I mean, I want all people to come to know Christ. And my Jewish brother, I'm one of the biggest friends of Israel and Jews that I know of in my circle of evangelicals. And there are others like me, but I'm not the only one. But I'm just saying, I've never uttered an ugly or nasty word towards Jewish people or the nation of Israel. I have defended their right to exist, who they are as a people, my heritage in their faith, as a Christian, as a believer, since my early days of ministry. I've lost friends over it. I've lost fellow minister contacts over it. I've had people trash me all over the internet because I support Israel and the Jews. So I'm just telling the story. Kaduri's the one that put the note up there that said Yeshua is Messiah. And then I don't care how one chooses to slice and dice it, that's what happened, and that's what it says. Now, the book explains everything behind it, and everything that's come forward from it. It explains and documents profusely from experts, from witnesses, from eyewitnesses, from mainstream media articles. It documents that this did happen, and this is what it says. When they get the book, they can see a picture of the actual note in his actual handwriting. You cannot deny that this happened. So, but just, you know how it is, brother, even in America, just the mere reporting of the fact or the truth, if people don't want to hear the fact or the truth, can bring the gates of hell against you. And so that's the story of this story. I mean, but it goes all the way back to the first century when Yeshua HaMashiach was amongst us. And who was it that attacked him? It was the fake news and the deep state, which involved the Jewish elite and Rome. And the believers and the people telling the truth about it afterwards were persecuted unto death and imprisonment for centuries, and it continues to roll. Where my book documents that there are more Christians being slaughtered and persecuted for their faith around the world now, collectively, more than any time in the history before us. So this rolls on. It's demonic. It's from the pits of Satan, Satan's lair. But the bottom line is God used this rabbi, the most famous rabbi in modern Israel's history. He had similar to an Apostle Paul revelation, and he leaves it in a way that he encrypted a note. He kind of fooled his ministry people into putting it on the internet. It stayed there for months until some of his students who he'd been teaching secretly about it decrypted it. They started writing about it. Once his ministry officials saw it, they pulled the note down and they destroyed it in a Kabbalistic occultic ritual to destroy the evidence, but by then it was too late. The note was out. People had pictures of it. I started writing the book. I started exposing it. Zev and I joined together. You and Zev and I are now together. Now the new book, because years later, all this new stuff is out. It's the story that won't die, and I believe it's going to keep on rolling, rip-roaring, and burning on until the Lord returns.
You know, when the chief rabbi speaks, people listen.
Yes.
And this revelation was not what people wanted to hear.
That's right.
They wanted to hear that the name was, you know, some relative of David Ben-Gurion. They
Yes.
wanted to hear that because the Jewish expectation in Israel and throughout the world is that this will not be the Son of God. This will just be a man, and it will probably be a military man that will conquer the enemy and restore the sovereignty of Israel. Sovereignty of Israel meaning the Genesis 15 description of the borders of Israel. Conquers
Yes.
the enemies of Syria, of Lebanon, of Iraq, of Jordan, of northern Saudi Arabia, and northern Egypt, and return Israel to what God had created as the boundaries, and that would be sovereign Israel. And then they would be at peace with the world, and that there would be a large enough footprint that they could then build and expand and house all the 14.8 million Jews from around the world, and we would have our homeland, and all this would be restored to us with great wealth, because there's wealthy deposits of oil and gold and silver and gas all throughout that region. And that's been the expectation. It was the expectation at the time that Jesus walked the face of this earth, that they created not only an expectation of a conqueror, and that's why the people called him Son of David, not son of Joseph, but because they were looking for a conqueror. And he came riding on a donkey as a king, so they recognized him as a king because of his entrance on a donkey. But yet we look at Jesus' return on a horse, which is a king saddled up for battle.
A warrior.
A warrior. But when we look at his response to John the Baptist, when John the Baptist said, "Are you the one to come, or will one come after you?" he gave a very deliberate, very calculated response by saying, "Go back and tell John what you've seen and what you've heard. And I'm going to itemize, and I'm going to itemize it in the order of expectation of what the Pharisees and the Sadducees expected the Messiah to do."
Right.
And
exactly.
Every one of them is an act of God.
Yes.
And
yes.
he enumerated to him, and it's in the records, it's in the annals of the Bible, it's chronicled his exact verbatim response to counter every objection that the rabbis had of questioning his authority and questioning his power. The raising of the dead. I mean, there's so many incredible things. The Jewish belief is the soul leaves the body after 3 days. And he raised Lazarus on the 4th day. This is an act of God. Blind from birth is a euphemism. It's an illustration of someone born without eyes. The only way you can know a baby is blind from birth is if they have no eyes. There is no visual acuity test they give to a newborn baby. So they go to the parents, and the parents say, yes, he was born without eyes. And so Jesus does exactly what he sees his Father do. He reaches into the dirt. Same way God created man in Genesis 6, and spits in it, and he creates an eye. This is bara. This is the Hebrew word bara, which is only used one other time in Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created. And so he does this, and then they come to him and say, well, show us a miracle so we can believe. And he said, I performed all these miracles in front of you, and you didn't believe any of them. Why should I give you another one that you're not going to believe? But now we have in the modern day, so we have a 2,000-year-old chronicle, which tells us all of the evidence we need to know, tying Jesus to Exodus chapter 12, tying Jesus to Leviticus chapter 16, where Israel laid their hands on him, and Rome laid their hands on him, and the sins of the nations and the sins of Israel were laid on his back, as it was in the days of Leviticus 16, where the sins were transferred to the animal. Now he was no longer clean. That's why he had to be taken outside the city gates of Israel in order to be sacrificed, because only something without blemish or spot could be sacrificed there in the gates of Israel. And he was taken to a specific place. And all of this is evidence, 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 being refuted, being refuted, being refuted. So it's okay. You want to refute something that happened 2,000 years ago. There's no living eyewitness testimony. All right? That's great. I can't go to somebody today and say, okay, tell me what you saw. Okay, I can't go and get a deposition from neither Matthew nor John, who were present at the time of Jesus' ministry, and they're with him during that 3.5 years. But what I can do is I can go to irrefutable forensic evidence which exists in the world today, which is a proclamation and a declaration from somebody that knows the scriptures like no one else. And he makes the declaration. And we have the physical evidence. They try to destroy it, but copies were made. They want to say it doesn't look like his handwriting. My handwriting today doesn't look like it did when I was 16. Okay, at 108 years old, what does your handwriting look like? It's going to be a little bit shaky. Yes. Your hand's going to be a little bit shaky.
And when they said that, it's documented that they pulled documents from 80 years prior in his life, when he was in his 20s and 30s, and brought that forward and said, here's what his handwriting looks like. This doesn't even look like it. Well, as you're saying, of course it doesn't.
So it's just incredible. And it's a story that is going to ignite a fire. And there are, praise God, Gentiles answering the call of Romans 11, that they are to provoke Israel to envy. And the church has not had the tools. You can't come to me and tell me Jesus died for my sins, or that I'm a sinner. Okay, and I'll tell you, well, I didn't murder anybody. Okay, you know, that's the big test of a sinner. I didn't murder anybody. I never hit anybody over the head with a sledgehammer. I didn't run anybody down on the highway on purpose. You know, who are you to judge me? Okay?
Yes.
But here we have something that's not in Christian speak. As a matter of fact, it's not a New Testament book.
Right.
It is a word for today in clear Jewish biblical terms from someone who is deeply regarded and deeply respected as the authority of his time, proclaiming the name of Yeshua. It is mind-boggling, Carl, that this is out, and the depth and the extent and the incredible input from the familial connection between the Rabbi Pinchas Parat, the chief rabbi, the Sanhedrin rabbi, grandfather to Rabbi Zeb Parat, and the family's connection to the Kaduri family is what makes this living eyewitness testimony. Not going back and trying to recreate Jack the Ripper, not trying to recreate some story from the past. This is a story for today. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to hear new evidence that absolutely demands a verdict that Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri left a message declaring that Yeshua, Jesus, was the promised Messiah. We'll be right back. Not everything that makes the headlines has biblical importance, but many events that happen around the world do, and you never hear about them. Igniting a Nation is pleased to teach Revealing Prophecy every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at the Marriott 280 in Birmingham. We will cover worldwide events and insider information that will connect the dots of what's happening around the world with biblical prophecy. If you happen to miss a class, we'll televise each week's class at 10 o'clock Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our social media outlets. Copies of the teachings will also be available to purchase on our website at www.ignitinganation.com. The Lord meets you right where you are, and so does Igniting a Nation's new live streaming outlets. You can now watch Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Prophecy Revealed simulcast live each Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, and through our website, www.ignitinganation.com. No matter what device you are using, our program will automatically scale so you won't have to miss a single program. And if you happen to miss an episode, you can always subscribe to the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel and access over 1,000 interviews and never miss your favorite authors, special guests, and topics that interest you the most.
There are lots of ways to see Israel, but nothing compares to seeing the land of the book and the people of the book through the eyes of two Jewish believers who can take you on a journey that will bring the entire Bible to life. When you join Rabbi Eric Walker and his #1 rated tour guide, Edo Canaan, in Israel, you'll experience incredible teachings, first-class accommodations, and actually walk where Jesus walked. You will experience the Bible transforming from black and white into living color, and you will never see the Bible in the same way again. For more information, visit us at www.ignitinganation.com/events.
The Lord contends with what contends with you, and Igniting a Nation is committed to bringing to light each and every issue that faces a believer's life. Our live stream programming and teachings take you on a journey to finding biblical truth from a wide variety of experts who share their insights into a deeper walk with the Lord. We have assembled the most comprehensive panel of experts in the fields of prophecy, caregiving, healing from trauma, shame, and abuse, and so much more. We continue to expand our teachings and programming to meet your needs. We're committed to healing the nations with biblical truth. Visit www.ignitinganation.com to develop a deeper walk with the Lord and start your journey to a transformed life. The Bible commands us to study to show ourselves approved, but most study using Bible study tools and not actually studying the Bible chapter and verse. Igniting a Nation is pleased to present Revealing the Bible, recorded and taught each week before a live audience. We take you deeper into the actual Bible and verse in both Hebrew and English and connect the dots between the Old and New Testament. You can attend our 2 classes in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, or watch the program every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our other simulcast outlets. For more information, visit www.ignitinganation.com/events. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, welcoming you to the Carl Gallups Hour that we have this time every month on the second Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock hour. He is the author of The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and the Identity of Messiah. Carl Gallups, welcome back to Revealing the Truth.
Thank you, Rabbi Eric. It's an honor to be here with you and your audience.
Carl, the passion that you have for this edition, the flow of this particular story, what was it about writing this version, this edition, telling the story this way that got you so impassioned that you're actually in May, at the same time I'll be in Israel, are going to be starting the recording of a documentary about this book? What was it that so grabbed you? Because this is not a news story to you. This is the completion of a story for you.
Yeah, it's the completion up to now anyway. Like we said, we might have to do, if the Lord tarries, we may have to do more on it because it just continually unfolds. It's the story that won't go away. Well, the passion behind this second book was, as I said earlier, but I want to put a bow on it. That is, so much new stuff has come forward, new relationships, new information, new insight, new witnesses, new information, new evidence. And it really didn't, it hit me all at once, Rabbi Eric. I didn't sit around thinking for years, I need to update this book. I need to write that book again. Oh my gosh. No, I mean, writing it the first time was a job. But so I didn't sit around planning and thinking and dreaming about writing another book on it, but it hit me. It welled up in me. This is a spiritual thing. God ordained it, I guess, gave me that holy unction that this has to be told now. Look what I've dropped in your lap. Now the story's bigger than ever, and the world must know. The Christians must know, but more importantly, the Jews must know. But everybody together, Jew and Gentile, the two becoming one. They've got to know we're in the last days. The return of the Lord is soon. Now, I don't set dates, and neither do you, and we don't wring our hands, the sky is falling. But we know, we feel it, we see it. We know the prophetic times we're living in. And this story got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then along comes Donald Trump's presidency and the return of Jerusalem and the Third Temple fever, which was all a part of Kaduri's ministry and prophecies tied to the coming of Messiah. Again, repeating myself, meeting you, meeting Zev, having people call me from Israel saying, guess what I know? And having Zev, find it out over there. Yes, this is true. I mean, it was just, it just, all of a sudden it hit me. I must write this. And once I did, the words flew onto the page. I mean, it was like an anointing from God. It's all the Lord. I mean, I'm just a tool. Who am I? I'm a Gentile ex-cop Baptist preacher on the Gulf Coast in the Bible Belt. Who am I to write this thoroughly Jewish story? But yet God used me, and I don't know why or how, but I'm going with it. It's a true story with lots of evidence. And I used to be an investigator, so I put it together. And plus, of course, my heart is for Jesus Christ, the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, as a preacher, pastor, Christian. So I guess that was a good little combination. But there it is. That's why.
We know that the key to the kingdom, to the return of Jesus, there is a key that he gave us at the end of Palm Sunday, that evening, which was now no longer Sunday. It was early in the wee hours of Monday morning at sundown on Sunday. It's now Monday morning, virtually in biblical times. And as he's returning, as he's leaving after the Palm Sunday walk, the entrance in Jerusalem, all of those things, he turns around and in Matthew 23:37, he makes a declaration. And he said, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who stoned the prophets and rejected the one sent to you. Like a mother hen longs to gather her chicks, how I long to gather you back to me, but you were not willing. Look, your house is left to you desolate. O Jerusalem, you will not see me again until you cry out, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Now, I consider that to be the key to the kingdom, that until the Jews call for the return of Messiah,
Yes.
because we've had 2,000 years of crying, "Come, Jesus, come."
Yes.
There have been billions of voices. Just in today, 2.5 billion Christians in the world. If all 2.5 billion cried out in unison, "Come, Jesus, come," heaven would not open up and the horse would not come through carrying the Messiah on it. It's just not the voice that God has proclaimed to be the voice. Now, that's really a bitter pill for many in the church to swallow, that the Jews that supposedly rejected Jesus are now the ones who are the key to the kingdom. Maybe I never heard that passage before. Maybe my pastor just never preached it before, but go to your Bible. It's there and it's very clear. And we know that it's going to come at the end of the campaign of Armageddon when they're going to cry. Maybe it's because it's a last resort. We don't know what the real scenario is, whether it's the beginning of the end we may be reduced to the numbers. We know that 2/3 of the Jews will die in this campaign. So we're now greatly reduced, worse than we were in the 1939 to 45 period. This book is going to open the eyes of so many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, possibly 1 million or more Jewish eyes to the fact that Jesus was the Messiah. What do you think that will do to the prophetic timeline as more Jews come into the kingdom? Why is that significant?
Thank you. Yeah. Well, you've already answered it, and I'm just going to add on to what you've said, and that is this. In Matthew 24, Jesus is giving all of these signs of the end, but one of the things that he says, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached unto all the nations, and then the end will come." Tie that to the passage of Scripture that says, "And therefore we should look forward to that day, and we should pray to speed its coming." Now, a lot of people have read that passage in the New Testament and have said, what, we can speed the coming of the Lord? Well, only God knows the day, but humanly speaking, as his ambassadors, we have a part in the kingdom coming. Pray. He said, "Pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So we are involved in bringing in the kingdom. Now, Carl Gallups doesn't name the day and call the angels down, but preach the gospel into all the nations. We're the first generation to have internet, Skype, TV, global communication, satellite, cable television, satellite television, smartphones in the hands of everybody on the earth, just about, even little children. We're the first generation. And all of that's only come about in the last couple of decades. Now here's Israel in the land. They've got Jerusalem back. I mean, everything that's happening. And in the midst of it, the gospel is literally going out to all the nations for the first time in human history. And we're a part of it. So you've got that. But as you so brilliantly said before you asked me this question, and let me piggyback on it with you, is that the key is for the Jews to look upon Jesus and call his name and say, "Yeshua HaMashiach, Yeshua HaMashiach. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And so I pray that this book will at least be a small part of that. I mean, there are other people preaching, and you and your ministry, you're all over the world, and and Zev and his ministry all over the world, and there's others like us. Sadly, not many, but there are others like us. We're not the only ones. None of us have an Elijah complex. We don't think we're the only ones. God's got them all over the place. But the vast majority of the Christian church is not understanding this. They're not engaging in this speeding up of the return of the Lord because they don't understand. You got to reach the Jews. God's got them. He's put them in one little sliver of land. They're right over there in Israel. More Jews are living in Israel now than in any other singular nation of the world. And along comes their most famous rabbi in their history, and brilliantly encrypts a message, leaves it with his ministry officials. It's put on his website, it's decoded, and it says, Yeshua is Mashiach. He is. Well, and then now here it is. It's in print. It's in movie, getting ready to be in movie. It's going all over the world, to the underground church in China, all over Israel, all over the United States, all over Europe. Jews are coming to Christ. People's heads are turning as this unfolds before them. This new book, this new movie, I think is going to rock the world. And I mean that in a spiritual sense. And so I think that's all of those factors are key to speeding up this process.
You know, it's there is a prayer which is called the standing prayer, in Hebrew called the Amidah. It is essential. It's one of it just goes so far back, and it says in the Amidah that come quickly,
yes,
speedily, even now.
Yes, to the Messiah. Says that for
right,
Messiah.
About the Messiah.
Yeah.
This is prayed 3 times a day at the wall. This is prayed by Jews all over the world who are calling for the sanctification, for repentance, for deliverance, for healing, and for the righteous return. It says, restore our judges as in former times and our counselors as at the beginning, and remove from us sorrow and sighing. Reign over us, you alone, O Lord, with loving kindness and compassion, and clear us in judgment. Blessed are you, O Lord, the King who loves righteousness and justice. Come, Lord, come, Bo Yeshua, Bo, swiftly, speedily, even now. This is the cry of the heart of every Jew, even those that don't believe in a Messiah.
Yeah. And as you and I have spoken, as Zev and you have spoken, as my book outlines, they use the name Yeshua. That's why they don't like the name. That's why they try to change it. And when they talk about Jesus of the New Testament, they break it down to Yeshu and all these little pejoratives, because they speak the name of Jesus continually in Hebrew. When they say, bring salvation, bring your salvation, the name Yeshua is salvation. Bring Yeshua to us speedily, quickly. And so they know that. You go into the Old Testament scriptures, and over in the Psalms and Isaiah and Ezekiel, you hear, and God is our Yeshua, or God is our salvation.
Yes.
Or out of Zion's hill comes our Yeshua, and on and on and on. And so, I mean, it's right there. It's always been there. It's right in front of them. They speak it with their mouths in their prayers. Bring Yeshua to us. Bring Yeshua to us. And so it's a real. This is a monumental spiritual battle, brother.
It is.
It's the battle of the cosmic ages.
Yeah, the Cliff Notes version of the book. A 108-year-old rabbi dies, and upon his death, they discover he left a note saying, an envelope that says, "Do not open this for 1 year."
Yeah. After my death. Yeah.
After my death. Take us to this point of who this man is, his status, and what they discovered upon the opening of this envelope.
Okay, I'll give the nut of the story, the Cliff Note version, and I urge your viewers, get the book. The whole story is told there and is profusely documented. I'm not pulling this stuff out of my back pocket. I didn't make it up. I have no desire to provoke the Jews to anger over a false story. This is true. It comes from their own most venerated rabbi, Yitzhak Kaduri, 108 when he died. He was in the land before Israel was even a nation, deeply connected to politics, to military officials, to sports figures. I mean, just the whole culture revered him. 108 when he died. But listen, when he died, Ariel Sharon was the prime minister of Israel. Ariel Sharon spent the night in Zev Parat's grandmother's house. I mean, so he's connected to all of this. Zev Parat's dad was a friend. I mean, granddad was a friend of Yitzhak Kaduri. But anyway, so Yitzhak Kaduri, 108. But here's the deal. In October 2005, he's in his synagogue. He tells his synagogue congregants, I know who the Messiah is. He's come to me in a vision. I know his name. I'm writing it in a note. I'm going to give it to my ministry officials. I want it posted on my website 1 year after I'm dead. Now, at the time he said it, he was 108, but he had no health problems, and he was in his right mind. He was very brilliant. Political figures were still asking for his blessings and counsel and wisdom. But in the meantime, he also said, but God also revealed to me, or this vision revealed to me, that Messiah would not come until after Ariel Sharon was dead. Now that shocked his congregation because Ariel Sharon was still alive. He was the prime minister. Well, within weeks, from October to the 1st of January, Ariel Sharon suffers a major stroke. He goes in the hospital. He's in a coma. He would be in that coma for 8 years. Now, they wouldn't know that at the time, but he wouldn't die till 2014. This is a little less than 5 years ago, brother. So this is all still very fresh. Well, within a day or two after Sharon goes in that hospital in Jerusalem, Kaduri is admitted in that hospital with pneumonia. A few weeks later, he's dead in the same month that Sharon goes in a coma. Now the people are just in shock. It's like, oh my gosh, right after he utters this prophecy about himself, his own death, the name of Messiah, and Sharon's in a coma and will die, and Kaduri's dead in the same month, in the same hospital. So now Sharon was eventually moved to another hospital right before, before he died, but they were there together. All right, now, so 1 year later, and I explained in the book why it was a 1 year process. It's an Orthodox Hebrew thing in certain denominations of Orthodox Hebrewism. But anyway, so 1 year later, January 2007, his note, which had been under lock and key, like he had demanded, they bring it out, they look at it, they read it in Hebrew, and they say, well, there's nothing, this is good. This is good. We'll put it on the website. Now, they weren't even imagining that he would have said anything foolish or dangerous as far as they were concerned. But when I'm sure they read it and they looked at it, and I'll tell your audience what it said in English, but they put it on the website. And now here's what it said in English. Now, he wrote it in Hebrew. It says, concerning the letter abbreviation of his name, and then I'm going to put comma because that's how it was written, not with a comma, but then it went to another sentence. He shall lift his people and prove that the word and law are valid. There's several ways you can interpret that, or you do it even better, but that's basically what it says. So they looked at that and they said, okay, well, that's a typical Jewish thing. It speaks of the office of Messiah. He will lift his people. He will prove the word as, and so we look at that and we say, well, duh, of course that's what Messiah is going to do. So people were fairly disappointed. It was on the front of his website. There was a 2 or 3 paragraph little article. I mean, what can you say about it? I mean, it's very benign, except that he had told his whole congregation, everyone in his yeshiva, and mainstream Israeli media had reported about 5 months earlier that he had told them he had met Messiah, and they talked about it. They said he's met Messiah. They didn't know who or what, but they were kind of saying, our great rabbi, he knows who Messiah is. So they look at the note and they're disappointed because he doesn't leave the name, except that what the world didn't know was he had left witnesses. He had already been teaching a secret group in his yeshiva of rabbinical students what God had revealed to him and connecting the scriptures. And I can't prove this yet. I'm going to go to Israel. I'm going to try to get in with some of these guys, and Zev knows them, and ask them this question. But I imagine it was one of his disciples, or some of them, that knew what that note, how it was to be encrypted. Because when you look at the first sentence, it says, concerning the letter abbreviation of his name. Now, that's an odd thing to say. Well, but he's leaving the clue. It was encrypted. It was written as an acrostic, like Psalm 119. The whole Psalm 119 is written in an acrostic form of the entire Hebrew alphabet. So somebody, and I believe it was one of his students who knew what he was teaching, they said, oh my gosh, he meant for that second part to take the first letter of each of those Hebrew words. Now, he will lift his people and prove full of words, but in Hebrew, it's only 6 words. And you circle the first 6 letters and it spells Yahoshua, Yahoshua, the long form of Yeshua. And as Zev explains and as you explained, that's even better than saying Yeshua if you're going to prove it, because it means something like, God is the one who brings us Yeshua. It is from God that Yeshua comes. God is our salvation in the person of Yeshua. I mean, it's just unbelievable. He leaves that. So his students or somebody decrypts it and it's all over the internet. Look what it says. Look what it says. Well, the ministry officials saw this instantly, and it was brought to their attention. They pulled it down, and then I reveal in the book what happened to the note. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a new piece of evidence coming right out of the mouth of a Jew who's connected to exactly what happened. So that's the long and short of it. I mean, so when that was exposed, then the kingdom of hell came against it. The deep state, the fake news started grinding away. In the midst of it all, I was making some little documentary videos, putting them on YouTube. They went viral. Publisher contacted me and says, you need to write a book about it. I wrote the first book just to get it out there. I went through hell with that because all the attack came against me then. And in the process, I met Zev, then I met you, and the whole story we've already said. And now here we are with everything else that's happened. That's the nutshell. It's actually more intricate than that, and it's all in the book.
What's interesting about the note that even translated into English, it says he will lift the people and prove that his word and law are valid. This was the note that Rabbi Kaduri left that was translated in English.
Yes.
Now, not even hidden, he's talking about the Messiah. He will lift the people and prove that his word and law are valid,
right.
Which Jesus said in Matthew 5:17. He said, I have not come to abolish the law, but fulfill it. In some translations, until heaven and earth pass away, not the least stroke of the pen will disappear from the law. And he says he will lift the people and prove that his word and law are valid. Then you get to the first letter of that in Hebrew, and it spells out Yehoshua or Yeshua, salvation. It is just so very, very concise and very clear and very well put together. The book is called The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and the Identity of Messiah. You can go to ignitinganation.com, click on Today, and click on the link to Carl Gallups, and it'll take you right to the book. You can go to carlgallups.com and go to Amazon and get a copy of this book. If you want to understand a miracle of the modern age in biblical terms. Now you say, but the Bible was written thousands of years ago. Okay? The last writing of it was finished up in 95 AD or so. How can you possibly have something today of biblical proportion? Well, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls confirming the authenticity of the Old Testament writings was a major biblical event of the modern day. The city of David, the discovery of the city of David, a modern biblical event for today. The revelation contained in this book, the forensic evidence contained in this book, the historical, biblical, and credentialed evidence of the author of Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri, who would not leave his legacy on this earth to ascend to heaven, to be with the Messiah right now as this controversy blows open in the Jewish world. Biblical proportion.
Yes.
Get a copy. Everyone who sees this needs to get a copy. The book is The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and the Identity of Messiah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Carl Gallups.
Let me tell your audience, they can go to my website, click on the banner, and see the book website, and then click on Read Inside. They can read 3 or 4 chapters. They can see the entire table of contents and a bunch of other stuff about it right there before they even buy it.
Carl Gallups, thank you for this hour. We will
Thank you.
see you on the 11th of next month, right here at the 12 o'clock hour for the Carl Gallups Hour, found right here on the Igniting a Nation Broadcasting Network. Until we see you next time, we just tell you we love you, we thank you, and we appreciate you, and our blessings to you and your family. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.